opinion is that you can't change your gender. The teacher, and I will make a direct quote, said, "That is not an opinion that we express in this school, and if you don't like it, you need to go to a different school." As much as I'm being silly with my fancy dress, this is a very serious story.
I am Catwoman. Hear me roar.
I mean, what is going on in this world when children can say that they're cats and be taken seriously at school?
The thought of busting Batman makes me feel all dirty.
Exactly, and I'm afraid that teacher is just one of the many examples we're seeing of teachers, educators, people that are trusted with, you know, our children's understanding of this world, their readiness to actually explore different points of view. When teachers are actively, very aggressively shouting that down in quite an emotionally unstable way, I think. I don't know whether or not the issue was very personal to that teacher in particular, but the way she dealt with it was completely unprofessional.
Gotta go. Girl talk.
And to say that if you express these views that she really has decided is unacceptable, I'm not sure she speaks for the whole entire school, if you don't like it, find another school, is an example of how polarised this debate has actually become, where anyone who expresses, you know, a pretty much scientifically sound view that there are only two genders and that identifying yourself with a cat is, you know, really, it doesn't make any sense at all, does it?
You poor guys. Always confusing your pistols with your privates.
You get shouted down and called a homophobe. She's linked it to homophobia.
She did. She was saying, why do you think, this is a direct quote, why do you think we have so many problems in the world with homophobia? Now, look at this little graphic, everyone. Some people would say that there's about 70-odd genders. This one describes 18. This was an NHS questionnaire thing that was asking you to identify with all of these different genders. Which one are you?
I wouldn't touch you to scratch you.
Honey, I'm home.
Oh, I forgot I'm not married.
This is bonkers, isn't it, Nigel?
Well, I mean, the teacher was unnecessarily aggressive on this one. I thought the kids were actually fighting back quite admirably. And where the teacher should have gone with this conversation is, no, you can't identify as a cat or an aardvark or a chihuahua or something like that. You cannot identify as a different species.
Who's the man behind the bed? Maybe you can help me find the woman behind the cat.
But you think you can change your gender?
But I do think you can change your gender. And so that is enshrined in British law for most purposes.
So you think, so for example, I could decide so you're saying a cat is me taking it too far?
Meow.
But I could
It's a different species, so it would be ridiculous.
So as long as
any
it's
more
the
than
same
you're a pillar
species,
box or
I
something.
could identify, as long as it's the same species, you're comfortable that I could identify as that. So I could identify as a man.
Yes, you can.
Could I identify as a black man?
Then it gets more complicated because transgender is something that is a personal necessity. If you're trying to change your race, that is a choice, and it also affects another community.
Now, that's too wishy-washy. Business, that
too wishy-washy.
But
it's just science, eh?
Mind-blowing, isn't it?
I tried to save you from grabbing.
Seems like every woman you try to save ends up dead. Or deeply resentful. Maybe you should retire.
It is free and it's safe.
But do you not think that this whole transgender thing affects another community? Men saying that they can be women. Do you not think that the community of women are affected by that?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you.
Scare me? No, it's just scaring myself, actually.
Well, they are, and that's where we talk about women's spaces. But if under the law, a woman can have a penis.
Please explain.
Yeah, I mean,
and the question then is whether or not that woman should be able to use women-only spaces. I think not, by the way. But the only difference under the law is you don't send a trans woman with male genitalia into a women's prison.
Firstly, just because something is law doesn't mean that it makes sense or that it's right. And you know, if something is not right. Just because it's law, that doesn't mean, you know, you have to follow it.
That is what it is, so, yep.
It's my personal view.
Well, you have to follow the law.
Well, you don't have to follow the law if it's not right, and that's how people affect change. But on that, the logic is the same. It doesn't matter if you're identifying as a different race or if you're identifying as a different species.
I don't know about you, Miss Kitty, but I feel so much yummier.
Because the whole point of being transgender and having gender dysphoria is the idea that you were placed in the wrong body and you identify with another gender. So using that logic, you can feel like you were born into the wrong race, because that's a biological thing. You can feel as though me not being white is materially affecting my life and my mental health. Same with a different species. I mean, it's not entirely uncommon for people to identify with animals.
Don't hurt us, lady. Our take-home's less than 300.
You're overpaid. Hit the road.
I mean, online you can find where people can actually pretend to be dogs and foxes.
But they can't be a dog or a fox.
But they believe it in their mind, so the logic is the same. It is.
I just love a big, strong man who's not afraid to show it with someone half his size. Be gentle, it's my first time.
Yeah, I worry about this because it's all well and good to be a little bit flippant about it, but to me there is a real safeguarding issue here. So you've got companies, external companies, that are going into schools in this country. Parents are not allowed to see what it is, the material that these children are receiving. A parent was going through a tribunal recently and was, again, she failed at a challenge to see this material because what they were saying is showing this material that kids are being taught would breach the confidentiality that they have in place with these schools and reduce their ability to commercialise their proposition. If the material was in the public domain, they couldn't be able to monetise it. This is so worrying. And I think, actually, parents do need to stand up to this, push back against it, because children, they shouldn't be told, you cannot say that there's two genders, you have to respect everyone for whatever it is, whatever. But yet, actually, when someone feels that two genders is a real thing, as is biological sex, that one, you don't have to respect that one. That's just a totally different ballgame.
Why are you dressed up like Batman?
Because he is Batman, you moron.
Yeah, but that's the kind of debate that you should have in the schools. And so I can see no reason why teachers shouldn't talk about transgender issues in schools. And the government are coming out with some guidance that you're talking about there, about what would be appropriate both by age and the material that is actually being given to kids.
Well, that was very brief. Just like all the men in my life.
Well, the thing is, it seems as though these charities and these companies are all trying to outperform each other with how inclusive and in-depth that they can be, which is what is leading to these detailed and really, I think, quite indoctrinating ideas about gender and really presenting them as fact. I think it's sort of a fever pitch where they all just want to outperform each other. But I think parents should definitely have more of a say, because at the end of the day, it's them that should be in charge of their children's education.
Maybe I'll just give myself a bath right here.
I don't think it should be a random teacher with ideological views who pushes that onto vulnerable kids.
Well, Sunak's changes that you're referring to, some people are saying they're reminiscent of Section 28, which we'll all remember that ban promotion of homosexuality. Anyway, some of the things that he's saying, which sound like common sense to me, teachers must tell parents that their child is questioning their gender, no new preferred pronouns until the parents consent. The kids and the teachers don't have to respect the chosen pronouns for the pupils.
How could you? I'm a woman.
I'm sorry,
Do you kind of agree with those measures?
Well, the whole thing there is that whatever a teacher does should be in the child's best interest. So if a child comes to a teacher and says, look, I think I'm transgender or I'm gay or whatever, please don't tell mum and dad, I think the teacher should respect that. Parents shouldn't have a veto over what their children are being taught.
You'd be very happy with your son going to school and being regarded in every way at school as a girl?
The so-called normal guys who always let you down. Sickos never scare me. At least they're committed.
And you have no knowledge of it. So your kid is now going, she's called Sarah at school, she's going to girls' toilets, she's talking about breast binding, chest binding, she's talking about potentially being put on a pathway to bodily mutilation and hormones.
6, 7, all good girls go to heaven.
Be comfortable not knowing any of that.
Well, all those things are a long way down the road. I mean, you're talking about somebody you might be thinking about becoming transgender.
You're catnip to a girl like me. Handsome, dazed, and to die for. I'm a woman and can't be taken for granted. Life's a bitch. Now so am I.
Well, I tell you, I think this is all a very slippery slope, and as a mum myself, I certainly do worry about this issue. I think it's one of the most serious things going on in our society today.
But a kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it.